Good morning, all you lovely people. You could have been anywhere in the world this morning, but you're here with us at Cross Current Church. Are we ready for some announcements? All right, so we have coming up an interest meeting for Honduras missions trip. That's going to be on the 23rd, right after church. So if you're interested in that, no commitment. Come on out, check it out, see what's going on, hear the details, and then make a decision. And also, I'm not going to forget what the other one is. I know it. Pastor Mark is having a topical Bible study. It's going to start on February 2nd, and then it's going to run for 6 weeks. That'll be on Wednesday at 6:30. That was all up here. I just knew all that.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah, you go now.
Who's ready for offering? I got the easy one. You got the more challenging one. And you did a really good job. All right, you can give, text to give at 84321. You can give in the offering boxes on the in and out of the auditorium. Or you can also give online at crosscurrent.tv. We just want you to be blessed. We're not asking for anything in return. We just want to encourage you to give because we want to see your life be the best that it can be. And we're blessed to be a blessing here at Cross Current. Amen? Amen. All right, let's pray. And we're going to dive deeper into worship. That sound good? All right, Lord, we love you. Father, we place everything we have at your feet. Father, it feels like there's going to be something different in the atmosphere this morning. It feels like there's something shifting this morning. So, Lord, we just continue to press into you, whether we feel like it or not, Father. Whether if we can just have one arm open, God, and one hand open. If that's the most we can do this morning, that's enough. Father, we just give you everything we have. We surrender. We love you. We worship you. Let's continue to worship this morning. We will lift our eyes. We won't fear the fight. There is one who is stronger. Hard pressed on each side, we will not lose sight of the one who is greater. One name holds every victory. One voice that silences the enemy. One King who reigns for all eternity. Jesus, Jesus. On the battlefield, your power is revealed. Giants fall defeated. silences the enemy. One King who reigns for all eternity. His name is Jesus. Jesus. One name holds every victory. One voice that silences the enemy. One King who reigns for all eternity. Jesus, You rose, you reign. Every victory is yours. Every single battle you've won. You stand undefeated. You stand undefeated. We stand undefeated. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, yes we do. I worship you. You are here, working in their midst. I worship you. I worship you. Come on, let's sing the chorus together. Come on.
Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you
We're declaring who he is this morning. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God.
are. That is who you
You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. Jesus, I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. In this moment, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you, Lord. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God. That is who you are. Sing that again, sing that again. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. Hey, that is who you are. That is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. Come on, declare that. That is who you are. That is who you are. Yeah. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you Show us who you are to the one who needs to see. Show us who you are. Show us who you are. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't see that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop working.
Even when I don't see it, you're working.
Come on now.
Even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working.
You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yeah, yeah. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 We love you, Lord. We love you, Jesus.
It was my cross you bore, so I could live in the freedom you died for. And now my life is yours, and I will sing of your goodness forevermore. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. And now my shame is gone. I stand amazed in your love undeniable. And your grace goes on, and I will sing of your goodness forever. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus, you deserve the praise. Worthy is your name.
So be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. You alone deserve our praise, 'cause you're the name above all names. Be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. You alone deserve our praise. You're the name above all names. Be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. You alone deserve our praise. You're the name above all names. Be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. You alone deserve our praise. You're the name above all names. Be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. You alone deserve our praise. You're the name above all names. Be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. You alone deserve our praise. You're the name above all names. Worthy is your name above all names. You're the name above all names. You're the name above all names. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is your
I had to spit my gum out. You know, we've lived an awful long time in the if it ain't broke, don't fix it way of thinking. And that can really work well if your goal is survival. And sometimes, depending on where you're at in life, that's all you can do is survive. But there's also seasons where when things no longer function, they may not be broken, they may still work just fine, but they're no longer fulfilling what we need. They're no longer that piece of the puzzle. They no longer function. And yet if we stay in the mentality of, well, it isn't broken, so I might as well just kind of keep going till it all breaks down, we can go a long, long way dysfunctionally, thinking that it's all okay because it ain't broke, but we're just surviving. And I can see in 2022 that there's an opportunity here for us to discard some things that have been carried around way, way, way past their date of usefulness. Some of those things may be just outdated ways of thinking. Some of those things may be our approach to our relationships. Some of those things may be the very fabric of our lives, the work that we're doing, the time that we spend, what's priority, what's not priority. And if we wait around until it's broken before we do anything about it, you may wait the rest of your life. You may wait the rest of your life on a bush or a tree to produce some fruit that is so stankin' overgrown that it can't anymore. You know, we might have to cut back in some areas. But I think that's where new life comes from. We might have to see some things fall by the wayside that we might miss. We might say goodbye and say, wow, that was a great time. But it feels like this year there's this step forward. And I want to take it. I don't know what it looks like, and I don't know if there's more steps beyond that, but I want to see kind of like what life could be like. Right? I don't want to go back. We've been there, done that. And it worked at the time. And you might be like, why? This is all so vague. It probably means something different to each one of you in this room right now, what I'm saying. But I'm inspired. I'm encouraged. I'm looking forward to this year as our year. It's our year. It's our year. It's not the pandemic's year. It's not the government's year. It's not, I'm not even going to say it's the church's year. It's our year. It's the people of God's year. And it's not our year that we're going to go out and carry a sign to tell everybody that's our year. It's our year because the love that's going to come out of who we are and what we've been through. The pruning and the process and the fire and all the stuff that we've had to walk out, that was all stuff for our good. And I think we might see it this year. I think we might see a people emerge that truly embody the heart and the love of this God that we constantly call out and celebrate for his love. A people that truly might lay down parts of their life for somebody else in need, and not just because they deserve it, but because that's what we do. A people that are in unity, not because all of our opinions are the same, but because we've aligned under the banner of love in a God that charges before us, not to save the 99, but to save the one lost one. It feels like that's this year. Feels like it's this year. It's our year. It's our year. You believe that today? Okay. All right. Well, we'll see, I guess, right? Well, good morning. Glad you're all here today. Good job. Worship was really good. Give a hand to our awesome band. I love these guys. Good job on announcements and offering, too. I know it's your guys' favorite thing ever to do. It's the one luxury I get when I speak. I don't have to do that part, so I make them do it. It's good. It's good. You can go ahead and have a seat. Say hello to your neighbor. Welcome him today. Thank you, sir. Nice job. Perfect. How's it going?
Want to do this together?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, what are you speaking on?
Here, just start from page 1.
All right, I'm a little underprepared.
It's all right. You'll be good. You got this. Well, Pastor Mark is in Honduras with our friend down there, Jeff Rial from Good Justice. If you remember the Honduras trip that was this last fall, I can't keep track of time. I feel like I've been in some weird time vortex. There's things that feel like they happened last week that were years ago, and then things that happened last month that I don't even know that they ever happened, right? It's just we're still recovering. We're in recovery, right? We're getting through all this. But they went on a trip to Honduras, and you remember they were creating those the water systems for people in towns, and so he's down there. And as you heard Amanda say, we are having another group that's going to go. And if you're interested in going down to Honduras, it appears to be a great trip. I've not been, but it appears like what they're doing, bringing these water filtration kits to different homes and towns down there, is really making a huge difference. Both, obviously, the practical elements of having clean water is really important for health and for life and for everything, but even just the spiritual component of providing sustenance like that water and people going that are there for the reason to really bring the love of God. I think it's a great trip to go on, and I highly encourage. It may not be convenient, the timing of all this stuff for you, but sometimes God works the greatest out in the most inconvenient times. Has anybody ever been there before, right? Like, yeah, that's usually how it works, it feels like. So just want to encourage you, if you're interested in doing that, to take advantage of something that our church is doing like that. So that interest meeting happens on the 23rd of January, right after service. So make sure you're a part of that. Yes? We're all going to go, right? The whole church? 90 plus people? Jeff would probably be like, can we have an interview process first? No, you guys would all be pleasant on a trip like that, right? Nice to each other. Jay, you wouldn't be? Yeah, figures. We wouldn't bring you. You could stay home. All right, so we're talking about process today. The big word, process. Process. Anybody in a process? Yeah? Me too. Is anybody enjoying the process? Some groans, some yeses. Sometimes. I heard sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes the process can be fun. Now, I'm not talking about a process if you're from Canada. That's not what we're talking about today. It's a process. That's how it's said. Okay, make sure we're clear on that. That's a whole different thing that I don't understand from Canada. But I've had this word on my heart for some time, and I don't know. The transition from 2021 to 2022, I don't normally even recognize the shift of the years as a big deal. I'm not one to make resolutions. I don't really even, I watch the New Year's Eve and and it seems like it's gotten even more boring than it was back in the day, so I don't know. We still watch it, but it just feels weird, the whole thing. So, but we watched it again, and I just usually don't make a big deal out of like the shift, because to me it's like another day, right? Like once you reach a certain age, your birthdays are just kind of like another day. Nobody really makes a huge deal out of it, and you just kind of keep moving on, and you get depressed because you get old, and that happens. But for some reason, I feel like there's a little bit more of a transition this year, and I think that there is a on-purpose process that's happening in all of us to very different degrees. We're all in process. Everybody is. There's nobody that's arrived, and there's nobody that's just standing still. You might not be going forward in the process that you're in, sadly, and I've been there, where we're going backwards in a process, but we're all in process, all of us. And if we define process from a dictionary, it says this: a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. Nice. Quality definition. Feels good, doesn't it? That's what you're in. That's what I'm in. And I feel like my current process is different than the one I started in when I first kind of discovered church and the Lord. So like I was counting it in my head, 24 years ago, quarter of a century ago was when I first started this the big P process. I know, right? It does feel like that sometimes. Anyway. But I feel there's a more distinct one that's happened in the past 3, 4, 5 years, okay? Right? Because you go through seasons and things change, and obviously you're very aware that things change in our world, stuff is different, right? This is all brand new information. And so for me, I guess I'm just in a place right now where I want to take a deeper look at the process that we're in. And so I am fully aware that what processes that I'm in are not going to be the same as what you're in. So I can't get up here and try to tell you what process you should be in. That would be very unfair. But I feel like we could collectively, as a group, look at our individual process and maybe make some decisions about what we want out of 2022. I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions, even though it really sounds like I am. I'm not. But I still think that when we think about the process of what's going to be for our year, and if this is our year, which I really am grabbing hold of that. This is our year. It's our year. I think we could maybe focus or hone our process in a way that we could see some growth. We could see some change. We could see some new things. And that's kind of where I was at when I got up here after worship, and I was saying, like, sometimes we wait until something's broken to really address it. And that can be okay, because sometimes we don't know it's wrong until it breaks. But sometimes we can be experiencing dysfunction and kind of have that inkling that this isn't really working out, but because it's not so bad, we'll just kind of keep going until it really gets bad. Like, you ever have the engine light come on and you just put the piece of black tape over it? Like, yep. Yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. The car's fine. The light's off. We're good, right? We know something's not right in there, but the car's still getting me to work and back. No problem. I don't hear anything. Well, maybe I hear a little something when I turn that one certain way, but that's all right, you know. But we know that at some point that's going to come back, right? They're just sensors. That's what all the men tell themselves. Yeah, it's just a sensor, just a busted sensor. Just cover that thing up. Yeah, we know. We're all mechanics. So I want to talk about our process, and I want to talk about it in the context of this year. All right, let's read a story from the Bible, though. Matthew chapter 2. Hey, nice. Matthew chapter 2. We're going to read the whole chapter. This might be the most Bible you read all month, and that's okay. You're in process. I don't judge anybody for that, because I've had some months where I haven't read a whole lot of Bible, and it's kind of my job sometimes to read the Bible. But still, I'm in process. Matthew 2, this is from the Message. I'm going to read not super fast, but just keep up, and then we're going to cover a few pieces of this afterwards. So, here we go. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem village, Judah territory, this was during Herod's kingship. A band of scholars arrived in Jerusalem from the east. They asked around, where can we find and pay homage to the newborn king of the Jews? We observed a star in the eastern sky that signaled his birth. We're on pilgrimage to worship him. Yes, I'm aware this is a Christmas story. The three wise men. But I'm in process. I didn't get to speak before Christmas, so what am I supposed to do? Get off my back. Verse 3, when word of their inquiry got to Herod, he was terrified, and not Herod alone, but most of Jerusalem as well. Herod lost no time. He gathered all the high priests and religion scholars in the city together and asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? They told him, Bethlehem, Judah territory. The prophet Micah wrote it plainly. It's you, Bethlehem, in Judah's land, no longer bringing up the rear. From you will come the leader, who will shepherd, rule my people, my Israel. Anybody here ever felt like they're bringing up the rear? Yeah, they're in process. That's good. Verse 7, Herod then arranged a secret meeting with the scholars from the east. Pretending to be as devout as they were, he got them to tell him exactly when the birth announcement star appeared. Then he told them the prophecy about Bethlehem and said, go find this child, leave no stone unturned. As soon as you can find him, send word, and I'll join you at once in your worship. Instructed by the king, they set off. Then the star appeared again, the same star they had seen in the eastern skies. It led them on until it hovered over the place of the child. They could hardly contain themselves. They were in the right place. They had arrived at the right time. They entered the house and saw the child in the arms of Mary, his mother. Overcome, they kneeled and worshiped him. Then they opened their luggage. This is the Message translation. Apparently they had luggage. Samsonite, who knows? And presented gifts: gold, frankincense, myrrh. In a dream, they were warned not to report back to Herod, so they worked out another route, left the territory without being seen, and returned to their own country. After the scholars were gone, God's angel showed up again in Joseph's dream and commanded, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. Stay until further notice. Herod is on the hunt for this child and wants to kill him." Joseph obeyed. He got up, took the child and his mother under cover of darkness. They were out of town and well on their way by daylight. They lived in Egypt until Herod's death. This Egyptian exile fulfilled what Hosea had preached: "I called my son out of Egypt." Herod, when he realized that the scholars had tricked him, flew into a rage. He commanded the murder of every little boy 2 years old and under who lived in Bethlehem and its surrounding hills. He determined that age from information he'd gotten from the scholars. That's when Jeremiah's revelation was fulfilled. A sound was heard in Ramah, weeping and much lament. Rachel weeping for her children. Rachel refusing all solace. Whoever Rachel is, dang, you screwed up, I guess. Her children gone, dead, and buried. Later, when Herod died, God's angel appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. "Up, take the child and his mother and return to Israel. All those out to murder the child are dead." Joseph obeyed. He got up, took the child and his mother, and re-entered Israel. When he heard, though, that Archelaus had succeeded his father Herod as king in Judea, he was afraid to go there. But then Joseph was directed in a dream to go to the hills of Galilee. On arrival, he settled in the village of Nazareth. This move was a fulfillment of the prophetic words: "He shall be called a Nazarene." Ooh. You've probably heard some version of this story before, right? 3 wise men. Fear is a process. Fear, F-E-A-R, is a process. It can be a process that leads us to all sorts of choices, actions, emotions. Society has figured that out. Whatever society is. Let's just say it. They. And you'll notice that if you sprinkle a little fear on certain things, boy, do they get a lot of attention. Marketing people have figured out that if we sprinkle a little fear, you'll buy it. Because you don't want to miss out. Or because you're worried about what might happen to you. Politicians have figured out how to use fear. Sadly, if we're going to point fingers, the church has figured out how to use fear, and oftentimes uses it as well. Sprinkle a little bit on whatever you want. People will pay attention to it. Now, in this story, we see Herod, this king, terrified of something that he doesn't even really understand or know. So terrified that he takes all these decisions, actions, these moments, and he does a lot of different stuff to take care of something that he's not even really sure or understand what the problem is. But the process of fear has created so much activity and chaos around his life that it gets to the point where he's ready to murder 2-year-old kids to take care of this problem. And sadly for him, not sadly for us, he doesn't even succeed when he goes to the extreme. Now, I'm hoping you're making the connection is if we live in a fear process and we use fear as our process, can you see how we might make a lot of decisions that are all over the place to try to solve some problems that we don't even fully understand or recognize what the issue is? That we might even go as far to lay waste to relationships or people or things in our lives just to try to solve an issue, but in the end, we don't even end up solving it anyway? Fear is a process. Fear can move mountains. Fear can build a whole belief system. Fear can run your home. Fear can parent your kids. Fear can drive you into the arms of somebody you got no business being with. It's a powerful process. And it doesn't just happen. It takes time. And it grows. Oftentimes, if we live in the process of fear for a long time, we get conditioned to it. And our minds, over time, begin to completely get clouded in our judgment because of how irrational the process of fear gets us. Our judgment will impact our relationships, our life experiences, our circumstances to a great extent. And we've seen some of that over the past couple years, right? Specifically, it feels like that fear process in some people, obviously nobody here, right? We're all way beyond that process. Yeah? We've obviously seen how fear can impact to a great extent. Sadly, sometimes fear does help. Sometimes fear has allowed us to survive longer than we would have in the past. But I honestly don't want to have another year where the process of fear is in charge, right? It's our year now. We can move on from that process, and maybe we can adjust ours. Maybe we can change it enough. Now, we see Joseph in this story, which is fascinating to me, and it's not just a Christmas story. We see Joseph also afraid, don't we? But is fear the process that he walks out? No. But yet he still moves his whole family to another country, a country that has a history of literally enslaving his entire heritage, Egypt, for hundreds and hundreds of years. And yes, he's given this thought from a dream, but I don't think that his dreams were that much more profound than our dreams. So for me, when I read that, I don't see it as like he had this moment while he was asleep and the dream came. He's like, that's what I have to do. To me, and maybe I'm reading into it too much and we can argue about that later, but to me, a dream would be more a confirmation of something that we were already feeling, and then the process to carry out that thought to the extent of moving us to another nation. That was something that came out of love. Because, see, love is also a process. Love isn't something that just happens like this, right? Love is something that takes time, takes decisions, takes choices, takes effort, takes sacrifice, it's a building. It's a work. You see, Joseph didn't move in fear, even though he was afraid. And I think so often in our lives, it's not that we have to live forever with no fear. It's not that things shouldn't ever make us afraid, but it's, are we leaning into the process of fear to make decisions? So obviously, we don't want the fear process, right? No one wants the fear process. Don't raise your hand if you want the fear process. Raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. Good job. You got the gold star today. A+. But we obviously need one. And I think we need one that's a little more developed than just grind a little bit more. That doesn't seem to be a great process. Just keep doing it a little harder, right? Like at some point, if you just keep grinding that thing, it will literally just disintegrate. So at some point, you've got to like change up the process or maybe not do that process. So my goal today is, like I said earlier, I can't outline the best process for you. I can show you that fear is not a great process, but how much longer do I really need to talk about fear not being a great process? We kind of get the point, right? Yes? I hope so. I guess rewatch that first part of this message again if you're still not there yet. Some of us leave the journey of our process open to fear. And because it's a loud and experienced voice around us, we're locked into that process without even realizing it. Things are no longer in our control. We respond to stimulus the same way. We just are on autopilot, just sort of on the same course, and don't even realize that's our process. Some of us have looked and tried to look at the process and become so overwhelmed with how much it might take to actually do some of this that we just adopt a position or a belief of hope. That I hope it'll turn out better this year. I hope things will work out for me. I hope things will be good. Hope is a beautiful, essential attitude. But hope is not a process. It was never meant to be, and we cannot rely on hope to be our process. But we need hope along the way. Don't hear me say you don't need to hope. Hope is an essential attitude that takes us as we go on our journey in a way that is way better than the opposite. But it is not a process. Let me prove it to you. I got a health issue, and I can tell I'm having a problem. Man, I hope the doctor calls me and find out how to get better. Hope he does. No. You got to suffer the phone call and express, listen, I need help. I have an issue here. Now, obviously, I'm not hoping in God is a little different than hoping in medicine for your health, and I get that. So don't carry the metaphor out to its deepest extent like I do when I sit in your seat. Don't do that. Stop right now. The point is, though, hope is not the process. Hope is essential. I'm going to say that again and again because people walk out of my messages all the time and they tell me what they heard and I'm like, I didn't even say that. What are you talking about? Hope is essential, but it's not the process. My concern is that we've lived in hope, functioning as a process, not realizing that it's not really even helping us. Because we think that if we hope and it ain't broke, so I don't need to fix it, and if I just keep hope alive, maybe we'll arrive. Hope as a process, not hope as an attitude, that's different, that's essential. But hope as a process generally doesn't cause us to face the difficult and tough things, the reality that's right in front of us, which is essential when it comes to a process in order to move what I would call forward. And you're walking away going, Doug's telling me not to hope anymore? What's this message about? This is weird. I don't get it. No, I'm not saying that. But it's not the process. Some of us have just given up on the process. We're just going to exist the way that we are for as long as we can. And maybe if things fall apart or get painful enough, then I'll engage in changing that process. Some of us are totally oblivious to the idea that we're even in process. And some of you are on such a completely different journey and a different process that none of that stuff applies to you anyway. And that's all good because you're in process. But doesn't it seem like a process that we're going to be in pretty much every day that you take a breath would be worth stopping for a moment at the beginning of the year and kind of examining and saying, what's the process I'm in this year? What are some steps I maybe want to take towards that process, towards that end? What are some things maybe I'd like to change? What are some things maybe I'd like to adjust? What are some things maybe I'd like to add, maybe subtract, maybe change direction on, course correct? It feels like that might be a good idea. Do you agree, Jacqueline? Thank you. Joseph could have just hoped that Herod didn't discover his son. He could have just hoped that God would protect him. He could have just hoped that they lived in an obscure enough space that they wouldn't look there. You see, even for Joseph, he understood that hope alone was not enough to save his family. He had to literally get up and move, disrupt his entire life for who knows how long. But you know what Joseph was able to see, which you can't see when you're in the fear process? Joseph was able to see that this is temporary. This is temporary. Because fear gets you in this mindset that this is permanent. It will never change. So I have to figure out how to adapt to this new normal and just live. But Joseph saw that, yes, I don't want to move to Egypt. I don't want to disrupt my family. I don't want to go to a place that is actively out to destroy my heritage, but this is temporary. So if it means I have to do that for a season, then I'll do that. Some process is not meant to be forever. There's no better time than at the beginning of a new year to assess our process. So I have some thoughts. These are some thoughts that I've found along the way. Maybe they help you. Maybe they don't. Just know that I really care about you, and I hope it does help. Okay? Is that fair enough? You're welcome. Number one, above any point that I'm going to make, every process begins with love. Well, I'll say that. Let me reword that. Every functional process begins with love. Let's just assume we're going to talk about functional processes at this point, so I don't have to keep saying that. And if I'm going to talk about a dysfunctional one, I'll say that instead. Saves me like 5 words. That's going to add up to like at least a whole 30 seconds at the end of the message, so it's good. Probably not even as long as it took me to explain this to you. This is probably taking longer to explain that to you than had I just went ahead and kept saying it, but the point is made. Thanks. A functional process always begins with love. A love for Christ, a love for ourselves, and a love for others. Every functional process is going to begin. A love for Christ, a love for ourselves, a love for others. So the first thing, we need fewer resolutions and more routines. Fewer resolutions, more routines. You see Herod in this story making big, dramatic resolutions. I'll lie my way into the knowledge that I need. I'll kill every child under 2 years old. The problem with resolutions, they tend to still their activity, but they tend not to really address any root issue. And even if they attempt to, they oftentimes aren't successful at changing it anyway. This is not real news to anybody in here, right? Hopefully none of us are under the illusion that a New Year's resolution is going to change the rest of our life, right? Most people don't even make them anymore. But that doesn't mean that in our process, we don't still get to a point where we make a resolution. Doesn't have to be New Year's to make a resolution. A big, dramatic thing. Well, I'm never going to do this. We make these huge resolutions that last for a couple hours or a couple days. And they don't address what's really going on underneath. Routines, in my mind, are going to be things that we change that we do daily. Every day. They don't have a big dramatic, usually, like exercise. Daily exercise, as dramatic as it might seem in your head, really isn't that dramatic. Right? Like in my mind, it's going to take a miracle for that to happen. It doesn't really take a miracle. You just have to show up and do it. Like, well, we ran out of funding early on. There was big interest in Doug Yoga, but it dropped off quick. Your daily habits and routines, this is why this is number one. Your daily habits and routines are having the greatest impact on your spiritual, relational, emotional growth more than anything else. More than your prayer time, more than your worship time, more than your quiet times, more than your church time. Your daily habits and changing the process of how those work will have a way more dramatic outcome than the hugely dramatic resolution on the front side with very little follow-through afterwards. Resolution's desire is to wrap up a whole big routine in one big dramatic thing with a quick fix. But we all know, even with our New Year's resolution, that our real habits end up usually winning. right? Now, the thing that I've struggled with is that I always view routines as needing to last forever. But it's okay if routines are seasonal. We need to give ourselves a little grace in that area. Like I started journaling in the spring of last year, thinking that I was going to journal for the rest of my life. And it was a great daily routine that I did for like a month and a half. And I sort of felt like I had finished that. I know, right? So I sort of felt like I had completed that. And so I was able just to like walk away from it. And it still was very helpful and very functional, but it was a daily routine that it was something that I did more than it was just this idea. And I was able to step away and go, okay, that was a good part of the process. And I think sometimes and I'll talk about this in a second, sometimes we have such high expectations of ourselves that we set ourselves up for failure from the very beginning, knowing that because of this huge expectation that we'll never be able to follow through with it anyway. Fear, the process of fear, loves big, dramatic resolutions that'll fix that problem. Just watch television for a little while and then with commercials on, and you'll find that they have real, big, dramatic changes that are going to fix your life. The process of a love allows us to create more of a livable framework of routines that actually change the cadence of our daily life. Routines are usually not glamorous. They're usually not big and dramatic. A lot of times the best routines are the ones you don't have to tell anybody about that you're doing, that you just do because you know. Like if you need to post on Facebook every day that you did a new routine today, which is if it helps you, I guess you can do that. Okay, I'll leave you alone there. Fewer resolutions and more routines. The next thing, we can be less rigid and more fluid. I have been challenged on this for the past 3 years of my process. Because I will say, it might even be longer than 3 years, it might be like 5. There was a season of my life where the rigidity of belief was very comfortable for me. It took care of all my fear, and what I felt like when I'm saying this, and hopefully I'll do justice explaining it, but when we have a rigid process, we have to find space for that to fit in. Either we have to make room for the process or somebody else has to make room for it. So we kind of become this like hard, I won't change, but yet I want to be here. And so we kind of move in ways that's almost like a big permanent concrete block, which is really helpful in some ways, but also not so helpful in some ways. And it doesn't mean that we have to let go of everything that we believe. And we've talked in terms of like deconstruction and things like that about maybe different parts of our beliefs. And hopefully over the past couple years, some of my messages have kind of challenged some of your thinking on some of the ways that you've been thinking. And I'm not even asking you to get on board or that you even need to be in that part of the process with me. But I think fluidity allows us to find that empty space that we can then connect with all parts of things and not just what we want. I have found that rigid thinking oftentimes hurts relationships, hurts people I love. And you might think, well, yeah, sometimes those people need to be hurt. And you know what? There's probably a little truth in that maybe like a couple times in your lifetime that's true, but that can't be your process. Do you get that? Like having a tough conversation that hurts is very needed sometimes, but that can't be your process. That can't be that's just the way I am. That's just how I operate. Make space for me. That rigidity, I have found, ends up hurting people. And I feel like in my life so often like the rigidity that I carried with how I was thinking was for my protection, not because of my love for Christ or my love for myself or for my love for other people. So the process for me, and it may not be for you, but the process for me was coming out of fear more than it was love. Rigidity for me was to make space for me. and me alone. So I'm back on the journey again. I'm back on the spiritual exploration of thinkers, teachers, coaches, mentors, leaders. I'm back on that journey again, which I probably should have never left it, and I don't think I totally did leave it, but it definitely wasn't as big of part of my process when I was kind of in that rigid space as it is now, where I'm trying to find a little more fluidity in how I think and what I believe and why I believe, and then how I live that out. Fear, like I said this I think already, but it's worth repeating. Fear pushes us to see things as permanent unless we do something about it. Love encourages us to embrace what's actually just temporary and know that it's changing and in process. We see past that concrete permanence, and we see things as this is temporary. This is temporary. This is temporary. And the power of seeing things as temporary alone is enough of a process that might change your life right now. And that it's okay that things are temporary. Some of you may like or don't like that I say this, but not every relationship in your life is supposed to be permanent. It's okay that some relationships at some point come to an end. That's okay. That's okay. All right. This next one's fun. Express fewer opinions, embody more practices. Now, if you're like me, you're going to say, well, what's the difference between routines and practices? Most people would say, well, probably nothing. I already thought of your question like yesterday, bro, so chill out. Thinking I don't realize the words are like almost identical. They're not, though. Let's separate them. Routines are things that we do for a season, daily, to adjust our habits. But let's talk about practices, being that when we take our belief into something that we take action on. So it's not just something we're doing every day, but it's something that we really believe that we then take action on. One of these things that's hard for a lot of people to do is what we say or believe our priorities actually are versus what actions we're willing to take for those priorities. Because practices are where we take that belief into action. I've heard people spout about all their priorities, but then you kind of look at their life and you're like, I'm not really seeing that reflected in how you actually behave. So you're not really practicing that. It's just an opinion. And I don't know about you, but over the past couple years, I think I've had enough of y'all's opinion to last me a good 20 years. So I'm good now. I'm good now. And a couple more still? All right. Give one more year and maybe you'll get it out. Now, a guy I like reading, and there's lots of opinions about this guy, so don't go after me. But anyway, Richard Rohr says that opinions are underdeveloped thinking. And I love that thought. Opinions are underdeveloped thinking. They are thoughts that we haven't fully carried through and thought about what we're really thinking or saying. We kind of, somewhere along, we just decide that that's what we think and we say it. It's an opinion. So if these practices are these beliefs that are going into action, and we want more of those, but expressing fewer opinions. Now, opinions can be fun in conversation, but they really don't produce much for our process. What we really need oftentimes is more of a journey with empathy and more with a journey of understanding. And so a lot of times, the great way of what I want to approach in this process is to quiet my opinion and listen to what's being expressed to me. And try to understand what's being said. And we've talked about this, but I encounter this so often in my life, and sometimes I still do it, very rarely. But sometimes like I notice people are waiting for me to finish my sentence so then they can offer me their opinion about what they think or what they feel or what they said versus even listening to what I just said. I do that occasionally because what you're saying is dumb, but still, listen. I love you. I just done hearing that. But that empathy is when we can sort of quiet that part of our nature that just has to say this and try to really hear what was said to us. And that's challenging. For some personalities, that feels like impossible. For some personalities, it almost comes naturally to them. And you'll know when you're talking to somebody because you feel like you're really being heard, right? You've ever had that conversation where it feels like, man, that person just really heard me? It's because they probably practiced empathy. They didn't need to tell you their opinion or their underdeveloped thinking about what you were saying. In our process today, right, you can see where because of fear, we feel like we've got to get that opinion in there. We got to get that thing out there. We got to make sure this was said. We got to make sure we say something about it. It's like fear drives our opinions to the forefront of the conversation when really our opinions should be more of a backseat in the conversation. I think love causes us to get and declare those like peaceful practices where we take what we really believe and we actually live it out. We talk about all the time how much we love people, but then our opinion expresses something else. That we only love certain people. Everybody doing okay? We got 2 more. Oh, we're good. Next one. Find fewer distractions. Create more margin. I did a whole message about margin last year sometime. Unfortunately, the church world, not you guys, everybody else, the church world, and you will see this happen, and maybe you'll remember me saying this. Maybe you won't. The church world is going to blame some of our loss of relevancy on a culture that is forgetting God. We're going to blame some of our loss of relevancy on a culture that the culture has forgotten God. That's why they no longer look to the church for love and belonging and those things. It's because they've forgotten God. When in reality, our clickbait, fear-filled, distraction style of media that the church is just as susceptible to as everybody else is just causing us to believe whatever's said out there. If you don't know, I'm the youth pastor now at the church again. Round 2. We struck out hard the first time, but we're coming back again. Let's go. I'm kidding. And I don't see a culture that's forgetting God at all. I don't see a culture that's embracing darkness. I don't see a culture that's forgotten anything. In fact, I see oftentimes a culture that has a better spiritual practice than the one that's sitting in the seats of the church. I see a culture that already kind of bleeds and feels many of these things that I'm saying up here already without even having to really try. It's just coming out of them. Now, instead of being mad at them for everything else that we might be mad at, hey, let's pat ourselves on the back. We raised them. Come on, we did something right. I don't see that at all. Now, do they want the same things that the church wanted in 1970? No. No. Mm-mm. Nah. But that's okay. Right? Some processes are temporary. Some of those things that they may not be broken. I agree. Some of that stuff's not broken. But we don't have to wait for it to break. Right? We can introduce maybe some things that actually are functioning and meeting the needs versus just, well, this is what we've always done. Why wouldn't we just keep doing that? Obviously, technology today has created a myriad of distractions, and you need to listen to my message about margin. I don't remember when it was, but just search for the last time I spoke. We've got to create margin. You will always find distractions wherever you go, but you won't find margin. Margin's something you have to create. And what margin is the space between where I am and where I want to be. I don't want to stay here, and I'm not there yet, so I got to find the space between. It's the transition, ugly space we all detest and hate and watch TV and eat out of the refrigerator so we don't have to think about it. But distractions, fear especially loves distractions. Fear and distractions go hand in hand because distraction takes our mind off of what we should be afraid of. But the problem is an always distracted brain, never in margin, can't learn. It can't learn. An always distracted brain, never in margin, can't learn. And we need to be learning. If learning's not a part of the process right now for you, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. The only way in our culture that I can see right now is to create margin. You've got to set aside time where you shut down the distractions and lean in to what's going on. Lean into what we're feeling. Lean into what we're thinking. Lean into what's going on in our heart, what's going on in our body, what's going on in our lives, and actually create, even selfishly create that space where we can learn. Man, I'm so convinced by the need for margin that to me it trumps almost every other part of what our daily lives are looking for right now, that we've got to find that space again, because it's essential that as people of God that we don't stop learning. We've got to keep learning. We've got to keep in process. We've got to keep advancing in this way. We've got a room full of thinkers, artists, philosophers, whatever it is God's put in your heart or your gift. I know you're out there. The world needs you now more than ever. The world needs people who are thinking philosophically and creating and expressing what's going on so that we can connect with that stuff and understand where we're at. And I've always said and will always believe that if we truly are the people of God, we're not in the back seat of artistry. We're in the front seat of artistry. Now, I don't see it right now out there, sadly, in the world. But man, to me, in a process that loves Christ, loves ourselves, and loves others, the art and the things that we make are so profound. They may never make you a dime, but they might change someone's life. They might bring a truth that someone's never heard. That was kind of a side note, but that was good. All right, last thing. This is a big one. Lower expectations. Ooh. Don't say that. Triggered. Lower expectations and louder celebration. We, as a society, are failing to find the joy in the small. We only celebrate the big. We only celebrate the over the top. We only celebrate the glamorous. We are losing and failing at celebrating the small. And it's desperately needed in our lives right now. Desperately. When someone's rude to a fast food employee because it wasn't fast enough or it wasn't right, that's because we've created a society that has such a high expectation on people serving us food that if it's not exactly right, I deserve to be frustrated about it. Now, that's kind of a lame example, but it's a very relevant one. So you take that out of the fast food industry and start to apply it to your personal life. The way we parent. Are we celebrating the small things in our children? Or are we always just raising the bar one more step higher for them? Can we celebrate that our student made it through the day with a smile? Maybe they didn't get A's, maybe they didn't get B's, but man, they made it through and they were just glad to be there. Like, that's a huge celebration. Can we celebrate that we even came to church today? Can we be celebrating the fact that we're here, that we defied the odds, we showed up, right? We just went through 2.5 years and are still going through this whole thing. Like, we need to find the celebration of the small again. And we need to be extra loud about it. We need to be so loud about it that the people out there with the high expectations are like, what? You're celebrating that? The kid used crayon. He's in 12th grade. Disappointment is nourished in an environment of high expectations. It feeds on it. It's fueled by it. Now, am I saying you should never have high expectations? No. No. I think it's good sometimes to have a high standard. It's good sometimes to ask people for a little more than what they think they're capable of. This is a process, though, right? We're talking about process. We're not talking about every little nuanced, specific application. But we can't always expect the highest and never celebrate the small again. Otherwise, we're feeding our kids a lifetime of disappointment where they're never going to be enough. They're never going to be enough. And you may not think it. The way you do that is how they're going to view their God. Because you as the parent are setting the stage. And I can tell you right now, your God up in heaven isn't standing there with folded arms, wishing you grew up a little bit, wishing you just did a little more, wishing you just reached a little higher. He's up there cheering over the smallest thing you can imagine. He's up there grabbing Jesus and grabbing angels and going, look, hey, look, they put their shoes on. Because our God knows how to celebrate the small. The whole freaking New Testament is about celebrating the small. Not about elevating everything to the highest possibility, but about celebrating what's small and being extra loud about it. And not the pity, like, oh, good job, y'all get a trophy. Wow, great job, that was great. Well, that's not a process that loves Christ, loves yourself, and loves people. I mean, was it really a big deal for Jesus to move twice? Joseph to move twice? Was it really that big of a deal? No. But it had lifelong implications, lifelong ramifications. Because he leaned away from a process of fear and leaned into a process of love. So am I saying parent your children with the lowest expectations possible? No. Am I saying treat your friends with low No. But take some time and celebrate the small, even for yourself. You laughed earlier when I said I journaled for a month and a half. Do you remember you laughed? I got you. You couldn't celebrate the small with me. You laughed at it. Yeah, you're feeling bad now, aren't you? Gotcha. Let's do the altar call right now, Lord. Forgive them for judging me. But that's a great point. And I'm not really like this mess anyway. But that is a great point. We couldn't celebrate that because it was a month and a half. But that is something. You know, I have a hard time, and I need to close soon. If I can't go and run on the treadmill for at least a half hour, it's not worth it to me. Why? Because I have such a high expectation that even spending 15 minutes on it isn't worth it. Because I can't celebrate the small. But isn't 15 minutes better than 0? Isn't 5 minutes better than 0? I hope you get the point. I hope you get the point. All right. In summary, the question that I've been asking myself, what do I want out of 2022? Do I want a year with sky-high expectations of myself and for those in my life that no one will probably ever meet? Do I want a loud, opinionated voice expressing myself? Do I want to find myself continually distracted? Do I want to be so rigid in my process that everybody has to make space for what I think? Do I want to cling to this like momentary resolution, believing that it'll solve my biggest problems? Do I want a process full of fear, full of harmful activity, but very little peace or rest? Or do I want to celebrate the small things, the unnoticed victories of our everyday lives? Do I want space to quiet myself on purpose and open up my heart and my mind and face these emotions and experience of my life and learn that I can embrace being me? Can I open up my heart to a fluidity towards all of life, towards all people, towards all beliefs? One where I can fill the space with connection around me instead of just having to pave my way. Do I want to find routines that daily open up my heart so I can grow, learn, and practice and express the love of Christ? This is your year. No one else owns it. No one else has control of your process. No one else can dictate to you what you're going to do or what you're not going to do. You're going to be in process anyway for 2022. Why not take a 30 minutes and think through, what do I want from this year? What do I want? Not some big dramatic New Year's resolution, but a process. And I think the reward of all of that, because we'll always be on process, is a wholeness. And that's, I feel like at the end of the day, what is the big difference maker is that wholeness, where it feels like I'm at a place of wholeness. Not finished, not where I want to be totally, but I'm full. I'm full. I'm whole. Amen? Amen. So this is your year, 2022. It's yours to make of it what you want. Your process is your process. I got big respect for it. Even if it's dumb at times, it's okay. I still love you through it. I'm kidding. If anybody's process around here is dumb, it's definitely mine. But still. I'm looking forward to this, and I don't normally take a year and think differently about it, but this is a year that I can sense that there is something different about it. And I don't think that's just pastor speak, because I don't usually say that kind of stuff. But it really will be about whether or not we set aside even a moment to look at it. What do we want? What do we want out of 2022? Amen? It's good. It's good. Well, enjoy your Sunday. Be nice to the fast food employee out there, please. Even if you don't want to be. Celebrate it even if they get your food wrong. Hey, you get to try something new. Maybe you don't like mayonnaise. Hey, give it a shot. Maybe you don't know what you've been missing. I hope you guys have an awesome Sunday. We'll be back here next week. You have a great week. Process.